You learned not to need anyone, to handle everything alone, to stay silent, and call that strength. You work, you pay your bills, you make your own decisions, and still, something is missing. You walk into your place, your phone stays quiet, no message waiting, only the sound of your own steps. You say you like peace, but it's not peace, it's absence in disguise. It's a heavy silence. You're proud of being independent, but you never asked the cost, never looked inside, never listened to that pain. And what if this loneliness isn't weakness, but a sign? A warning from your soul of what you had to hide to survive? You weren't born this way. You adapted. Independence was a response, not a conscious choice. It appeared when asking for help hurt, when relying on others disappointed, when waiting wasn't safe. So you decided, better not need. Carl Jung would call this a persona, an identity built to survive. A social mask of strength, efficiency, control, self-sufficiency. It works, but it costs. That mask protected you from abandonment, kept you from begging, saved you from humiliation, gave you dignity, gave you respect, gave you autonomy, but it also distanced you from yourself. You learned to silence your needs, to minimize feelings, to handle everything alone, to not bother anyone, to not depend, to not wait, to not ask, to not feel. That doesn't make you cold. It makes you wounded, because what's repressed doesn't disappear. It only hides in the body, in the soul, in the silence, waiting to be seen. Loneliness doesn't come out of nowhere. It's a consequence of being strong for too long, of not allowing yourself to be cared for, of confusing maturity with isolation, of confusing autonomy with lack of connection, of confusing peace with emotional numbness, and paying the price quietly. You are not broken. You're overprotected, protected from feeling, from hoping, from exposing yourself, from truly loving, and every excess of protection becomes a prison, even when it looks like strength. That's why nothing fills the space. Not success, not freedom, not control, not independence. Because the soul wasn't made to survive. It was made to connect, and you know this. Deep down, when the persona takes over, the soul whispers, through emptiness, through loneliness, through the sense of not belonging. This isn't punishment. It's a message, an invitation, awareness knocking at the door. And when you understand this, something eases, the weight softens, the guilt falls away. You are not weak. You never were. You were just alone for too long, without realizing it. And that changes everything. You don't notice when it starts. It's subtle, almost invisible. You choose people who can't stay, who won't commit, who are emotionally unavailable. And you call it chemistry. But it's repetition. You feel drawn to distance, to confusion, to emotional closure, because it feels familiar. It doesn't threaten your mask. It doesn't demand vulnerability. It doesn't ask for real surrender. It just confirms what you already know. When someone gets too close, you pull away, not because you don't want love, but because you're afraid. Afraid of needing, afraid of depending, afraid of removing the armor, afraid of being seen without the persona and being left again. So you give too much, listen too much, understand too much, tolerate too much, adapt too much, so you won't lose, so you won't bother, so you won't have to ask. You call this mature love, but it's quiet self-abandonment. You forget yourself, put yourself second, say you're fine when you're not, smile on the outside and empty out inside. Here the pattern closes in. You give everything, receive little, get tired, feel invisible, feel alone, and conclude that love hurts, when in truth, repetition hurts. You think the problem is other people, or bad timing, or bad luck, but something inside you knows. This pain is old. This script isn't new. Only the face changes. The ending stays the same, because an unhealed wound chooses for you. It seeks what confirms the old belief. I'm alone. I give more than I receive. No one stays. And each repetition reinforces it, not because it's true, but because it's familiar. This is where it hurts most, because it becomes clear. You realize you're not a victim of chance, nor of love, but of an unconscious pattern that once tried to protect you and now imprisons you without you noticing. And when this awareness arrives, nothing stays the same, because you see. And once you see, you can't pretend. Loneliness starts to lose its grip. The cycle begins to crack. It still hurts, but now it makes sense. If something moved inside you while listening to this, it wasn't by accident. This channel exists for women who are tired of surviving in silence and want to understand their own soul. Here, you won't find shallow advice. You'll find clarity, healing, and direction. Maybe this is where your loneliness finally starts to make sense. Click the button now and subscribe. Not for us, for you. At first, you endure it, then you adapt, and slowly, without noticing, you harden. You learn to function while tired, to smile without rest, to give without receiving, to keep going without listening to yourself. And you call this maturity. Exhaustion becomes routine. Emptiness starts walking beside you. You wake up already tired. You sleep without feeling whole. The body moves on, but the soul lags behind. You solve everything except yourself, and no one notices because you don't show it. Not even you remember when it began. Loneliness stops being a feeling. It becomes an identity. This is just who I am. I don't need anyone. I can handle it alone. These words feel safe, but they also become a cage, and you get used to the echo. You're surrounded by people. Conversations happen. Invitations appear. Laughter fills the room, but no one truly enters. Because there's no space. You built walls too well and forgot where the door is. This is where it hurts most, because it becomes clear. You're not alone because you lack value, or because you ask for too much, but because you fear needing. You confuse dependence with danger. You believe connection means losing control, and everything shifts. So you try to compensate. You love more, give more, tolerate more, adapt more, or you do the opposite. You shut down further, and nothing changes, because loving more doesn't fix it, pleasing more doesn't fix it, closing off doesn't fix it. Loneliness isn't born from the absence of others. It's born from too much protection, from fear of being seen without armor, from refusing to rest in someone. And it weighs. You begin to feel invisible, even when you're needed, even when you're admired, even when you're sought after, because no one touches what's hidden, not even you. Strength becomes distance, and the heart grows quiet. Slowly, you abandon yourself, not out of neglect, but out of survival. You place yourself second, silence legitimate desires, normalize absence, and call it peace. But it isn't, because peace is not numbness. Peace is not controlled emptiness. Peace is not the absence of feeling. What you feel is suspension, frozen waiting, contained love, contained soul. Healing doesn't start with others. It starts with you, not with strength, but with honesty. You have to admit the exhaustion, acknowledge the loneliness without shame. Stop being proud of what hurts you, and that is already a beginning. The first step is simple, but it requires courage. You need to listen to what you feel, without correcting it, without justifying it, without minimizing it. Naming the emptiness changes everything. Because what is named can be cared for. You were trained to fix things, not to feel. So start small. Ask your body, ask your soul, what do I need right now? Not what is right, but what is true. The second step is learning to ask, not for practical help, but for emotional presence. To say, this is hard for me, without over-explaining, without defending yourself, without apologizing for existing, and to hold the silence after. At first, this feels frightening, because asking exposes you, and you learn to protect yourself. But vulnerability isn't weakness, it's emotional regulation. It allows real connection. It removes the persona. Even if your hands shake, you don't need to tell everything, or tell everyone, just one safe person. Someone who listens without correcting, who doesn't try to rescue, who doesn't invalidate, who stays, and that retrains the soul. Another practical cure is setting boundaries, not to push people away, but to stay whole, saying no when yes hurts, stopping adaptation driven by fear, choosing yourself without guilt. A boundary is not rejection, it's care. When you respect yourself, something shifts. The body relaxes, the mind slows down, the soul breathes. You begin to feel again, not only emptiness, but also presence. Even if it still aches, loneliness doesn't disappear immediately. It loses control, because now you are with yourself, whole, aware, present. Healing doesn't shout, it whispers, and in that whisper, things realign. You no longer need to prove strength, or hide your needs. You begin to exist whole, without a mask, without armor, without hurry. Hey, if you got distracted, come back here with me now. Breathe. Pay attention. What comes next is the most important part of all. You thought God was distant, silent, watching from afar, while you learned to be strong on your own. But maybe he was closer than you think, waiting for you to stop, waiting for you to feel, waiting for you to make room. God didn't enter sooner because you didn't allow it, not out of rejection, but out of excessive protection. You closed everything to avoid pain, and closed yourself even to him, because you learned that depending hurts, and confused faith with control, without realizing it. Loneliness, then, wasn't abandonment. It was an invitation, a quiet call from the soul to dismantle the persona, to integrate the shadow, to stop performing strength, and return home, inside yourself. Scripture says something simple, yet deep. Better a patient person than a warrior, one who rules their spirit. It's in Proverbs. It's not about conquering the world. It's about inhabiting yourself, with truth, with presence. God never asked for absolute independence. He never did. He asked for surrender. And surrender is not weakness. It's trust. It's resting without control. It's allowing yourself to be held, even when afraid. Maybe God is using loneliness, not to punish you, but to free you. Free you from the illusion of self-sufficiency. Free you from the mask. Free you from the armor. Because real love requires presence, and presence requires surrender. When you stop fighting alone, something shifts. The heart slows down. The body softens. The soul expands. You're no longer trying to earn love or prove worth. You simply exist, and that is enough. God doesn't arrive with quick answers. He arrives with companionship, with staying power, with livable silence. He sits on the floor with you, in the middle of the mess, in the middle of the emptiness, and stays. Loneliness begins to lose its meaning, not because everything is fixed, but because you are no longer alone. Even when no one sees, even when no one calls, there is a presence that holds you, without demanding performance, without hurry. Maybe this pain was never the end. Maybe it was always the middle, the turning point, where the soul matures, where faith stops being an idea and becomes experience, where you no longer need to run. You didn't become independent by accident. It was necessary. It was survival. It was wisdom at that time. But something has changed now. You no longer need to protect yourself from the entire world or from yourself. That season has passed. Loneliness doesn't disappear overnight. It transforms. From enemy, it becomes a messenger. From punishment, it becomes a bridge. It shows you where you abandoned yourself, where you put on the mask too early, where you learned to be alone to avoid pain. And that is revelation. You begin to integrate strength and sensitivity, autonomy and connection, reason and faith. You don't have to choose one side. You can be whole, firm, and open without losing yourself. Independence stops being armor. It becomes ground. You know who you are. You know what you feel. You know what you need. And you're not ashamed of it. You no longer beg. You share. Now, when someone arrives, you don't disappear. And when someone leaves, you don't collapse. Because something holds you inside. A presence, an awareness, a lived faith. You don't need others to exist, but you choose to relate. God didn't remove your loneliness. He met you inside it. He taught you to inhabit silence, without harming yourself, without hardening, without running. He stayed, and that remade you. You didn't lose love. You gained awareness. It wasn't rejection. It was redirection. It wasn't delay. It was preparation. You weren't forgotten. You were protected. Now you move differently, not empty, but available, not needy, but present, not closed, but whole. Loneliness no longer rules, it teaches. The cycle closes here, not with unrealistic promises, but with possible peace, with emotional maturity, with embodied faith. You no longer run from the question, why did this happen to me? You already know, because you needed to meet yourself, without masks, without noise, without hurry, to learn how to love without losing yourself, to depend without disappearing, to believe without controlling. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to our channel right now. This is a space for those who feel deeply, think deeply, and believe honestly. Each video is an invitation to understand pain, mature the soul, and live faith with clarity. Maybe this is where God is meeting you gently. Stay with us. If you made it to the end of this video, leave a word in the comments that represents what you felt. It could be awareness, healing, peace, or new beginning. When you name it, you integrate it, and integration creates space for God to move. You didn't get here by accident.